Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Mike Ames Recruitment Show, where we are going to be talking about how to get your audience's attention and how to get more of your written stuff read. Now, we have a great guest today, but before we introduce them, we've got someone back. Mike's back in the house. How you doing, big guy?
I'm back. I'm back from Egypt, and I'm wearing my Yahul that we bought for the Egyptian night on the boat, which was fabulous. And yes, I was doing Dance Like an Egyptian because they put it on the record, so we all had to do it. I was fabulous, and it was a bloody good laugh, actually, to be honest.
We have limited him to 2 sentences of his Egypt trip.
No, what about my PowerPoint presentation?
No. We haven't got time for that, Mike. We haven't got time for that today. We've got stuff to talk about. We've got value to add to our audience. So why don't you talk about what we're talking about today, why we're talking about it, and who we've got on?
Okay, right. So getting stuff read that you've written has always been important, whether that's an advert or an email or a CV or anything really, a LinkedIn post. It's really important because if it doesn't get written, whatever you've written that for won't happen, right? So it's as simple as that. The problem is, and that's always been a challenge, but the problem is recently with the introduction of AI, anyone can produce half decent copy, or at least that's what I think. Not sure our guest sees it the same way, but we'll see. So there's been this explosion of stuff out there. So yours is now, your whatever it is that you've written is a much bigger pool of stuff, and it's incredibly important to put effort into your written work to get it noticed. It's the A from ADA: attention, interest, desire, and action. If you don't grab their attention, then the rest of it is irrelevant because they won't read it. So I wanted to bring on what I think is the foremost coach and trainer in writing copy of all sorts, Mr. Mitch Sullivan, and I wanted to come on the show, and we're going to discuss a number of things. Sadly, we've only got 45 minutes for this. I tell you now, we really need 3 hours and 45 minutes, but we're going to do the best that we can in the time that we have. So let's bring Mitch in and introduce him. And there he is. Hi, Mitch.
Hi, how are you? Nice to be here.
If I was any better, I'd be twins. I'm that good. In fact, come back from holidays, I feel like I'm having twins, quite frankly.
Let's move swiftly on. So before we go into this, we are very lucky to have Mitch here today, who has a wealth of knowledge that he's going to share with us. But as always, guys, as we go through, if you have any questions, if you're watching us live, please feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll bring them up to Mitch. And I'm sure Mike will have his 2 penneth as well. But Mike, let's get started.
He told us before we started, he loves to react to things. So if you want to put a question in, make it very detailed, very specific, or more general, whatever, put it in and Mitch will deal with it. He'll nail it. He loves it, thrives on it, apparently. So let's all go with that. So, Kirsty Elizabeth, what we're looking at first? What do you reckon?
First, Mitch, let's get it out there, because I know everybody's thinking this when we talk about copy. Let's say those 2 dreaded letters, I'm sure, in your mind, which is AI. Let's just start with, what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, well, it's inevitable. It's happened. It's here. So we all have to embrace it to some extent. But it's like anything. It's how you use something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cars are really rubbish if you drive them at 150 miles everywhere. Really horrible. Yeah. But yeah, used correctly, they kind of work for everybody, more or less. Something like AI is the same. Yeah. It's whether it's used more for good or bad, and it will be used for both. You make no mistake. But the integrity of the people behind how it's built and how it behaves is
But just on that though, because that explosion of written material, that's inevitable. It's happened. LinkedIn have just changed the algorithm again recently. I don't know whether you're aware. We don't know for certain, but it looks very likely. And we think that they've done it because there's so many more posts going out now, because people are just writing this stuff and whacking it out. So it is more competitive out there, whether you agree with the quality of AI or not. I mean, there's so much more stuff out there now, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's social media for you, and that started happening, 2009. I mean, in my world, it started happening in 2001. I was very much an early adopter of all of this. So it's getting, an AI will just put that on steroids, and it'll do. Well, I don't know. I'm not very good at predicting the future. It will turn everyone into zombies. So they won't read anything. Yeah, or they'll just react. They'll only react to something when they absolutely need something, be it a job or a new fridge. or you know, and if that happens and it takes away a lot of jobs, then recruitment agencies become job centers, and they're just admin centers for processing jobs and people.
Well, there's a whole discussion around the future of recruitment, which we should have at some point. I mean, we don't think we can afford the time today, but it is a very interesting discussion because there's lots of different theories on where things are going to go. But I think right now and where we are is that there is no doubt that AI produces decent copy, decent enough to publish.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's going to mean different things to different people. To you and me, for one, you know, my understanding of decent is going to be different to a lot of people's. Look, I've heard this spoken about on LinkedIn. Oh, there's a big rise in recruiters using AI for their LinkedIn posts, or people in general. And honestly, I can't tell.
No, and that's the point. This is the point I'm getting at now. This is the nub right there. This is what's happened, because what LinkedIn is, we believe, and no one really knows for sure because LinkedIn won't tell us. Although, just a heads up, guys, we're running an AI conference in a few weeks. It's free. And we've got LinkedIn coming on as one of the speakers, and we're going to ask them questions around this when they do. So keep an eye out for that. But one thing is for sure, what LinkedIn is doing, it's trying to sift out the things that it thinks people don't want to see. And so it's a very good reason for not necessarily noticing a vast difference, is LinkedIn sifting it out. It's the same as we were talking about earlier. That
what is that doing? Is that going to improve the quality? Because if people are going to start,
that's what they want. Because if the quality of the posts aren't very good, people won't look at it. And if they don't look at it, they won't see the advertising. Yeah. And LinkedIn makes about $3.4 billion from advertising. So hell, you know, that's a really big thing they've got to protect, which is why they're doing it, which is why another reason I wanted you on the show, not that we're going to talk about social media posts necessarily, but this idea of really drilling into A-Day. You've got to grab their attention, create interest, and build desire. If you don't grab their attention, which is what today's all about, really, you're dead in the water. You're really not going to do anything.
Well, that leads back to what you were saying about LinkedIn's algorithm promoting you know, stuff that's more popular. What they've been doing to now is promoting stuff that's more popular, because the tactics being used to gain that popularity is basically clickbait and elaborate versions of clickbait.
I wouldn't be surprised if LinkedIn's AIs can't figure out if a post has been written by AI or not. I would imagine.
I don't care. Personally,
I would imagine that they will, and I don't think they'll promote them if they don't feel they're any value. Anyway, let's move on, because basically AI is here. It has caused us exposure to content. People are reacting to it, but what we have to do as recruiters is we have to write better stuff. We have to write better stuff that people are going to want to read. Whether there's 3 CVs or 103 CVs, they want to read ours first. You know, whether they see one advert or 100 adverts, they want to read our advert and respond to it first. It's very important to do that, because there is a lot of money wrapped up in people reading your stuff. Right?
Yeah, so first question I want to ask, Mitch, is where does the AI go wrong, do you think? If you were to think of, you know, the stuff that you coach on and teach on as the right way of doing it, what does the AI stuff get wrong, which means it's not going to be as effective or not going to work?
The AI isn't doing anything wrong. The AI is a child that has just had a load of information dumped on it from everywhere, ever. And it makes sense of it. It does a pretty good job, and it's getting smarter for sure, but it's just serving back what the vast majority of the population have been putting out on the internet. That's its knowledge. So it's just serving it back. So if a recruiter goes to an AI tool of whatever their preferred one is, and they type in, write me a job ad for a Linux engineer, or any job title, what they'll get back is a job description. Because that's the internet's understanding of what job ads are. Is, well, yeah, they talk all about the company, they talk all about what the company wants, it talks all about what the candidate has to do. Yeah, it tells them what the candidate must have to qualify to even, and what to do next. Yeah, so it's all very sort of what we call demand language or top-down language. But that's its understanding of a job. So if that's all a recruiter is doing, it's just getting served back a slightly better version of what it's already putting out. It just doesn't have any typos in it. Now, conversely, if somebody who understands marketing, and literally half the people in marketing don't, by the way, Um,
I'm glad you say that, not me, but
well, look, they will one day, probably most of them, but at the moment they possibly don't. But and I know I'm judging that just from the content I see and how they talk about marketing. You know, so look, getting back to the analogy, a recruiter that goes to the same AI tool and then starts prompting. So I want to write my job out for a Linux engineer, and I want it to emphasize reasons why that engineer might find this job attractive. And let's see what it comes back. And it'll still look like a job spec, but it'll have little areas where it's just trying to massage the language and a lot of that will be around using adjectives like, oh, this is a fantastic role and it's an exciting opportunity. And you have to then go back and say, I don't want adjectives. I want you to tell me why this is exciting. Yeah. And you're probably going to have to tell it yourself why it's exciting if you understand the job. And, that could take 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. And to which I would say, well, a lot of those people would probably just find it easier to write it themselves.
Let's move away from AI then, and let's move into specifically
not
yet. 1 second. Yeah, carry on, Mitch.
I think needs to be said that I think is really important on AI is that using it in whatever form, be it a specialized tool or a generic tool like ChatGPT, it deprives you of the thinking. And good writing is the product of good thinking. Good writing doesn't happen in isolation. It's directly linked to good thinking.
We've had some really interesting comments, actually. So first of all, Kirsty's come in and said, you're an absolute
Oh, Kirsty, you are a one.
I love very much so. Martin's got a thing here, which I think you'll agree with. Writing a job advert isn't about the technicalities. Anyone capable of doing the job knows what skills are needed. Your adverts need to convey the why should you give a damn about this job. It's about describing the context of what's going on and why someone should be compelled to want to apply and be part of that journey. AI can't do that as you get that from the brief or the meeting from the client. What do you think about that, Mitch?
Yeah, I broadly agree with what Martin said. Could you put it back up? Because there's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, I totally agree with him. If it's for a job where you're asking for someone with similar type of experience, why?
Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, peeps.
Sorry, that's for me. I'm not here. Yeah.
Peeps.
There's no need to explain the job to them. Yeah. So totally agree there. Why should they give a damn about the job? Can you put it back up again?
Oh, sorry.
Now, this is the bit I'm going to challenge you on, Martin. It's about describing the context of what's going on and why someone we should be compelled to want to apply and be part of that journey. That suggests to me that what's going to be written there is about the company. Oh, what's the company's journey? Where are they going? What have they done? How well are they doing? The context of the job. And unfortunately, that pushes people into writing about the wrong things, which is the company and or what that person would be doing to help the company be successful. That isn't compelling, basically. So I kind of part agree with you, and I'm part kind of guessing what you mean in that middle bit, but it often does mean writing about the company and the job. And what you need to be writing about is the reader's career, why this job might make their life better in some way.
I like it. Okay, perfect. Now we are going to move on because I do want to get into the more depth. But one quick question I want to ask for you is, Mitch, where does AI work? We've been very mean about it, or very reductive about it. Is there a situation where AI does work for recruiters?
Okay, look, I have to preface this with I'm not an expert. I have taken a much deeper interest in the subject in the last 6 months. What I'm hearing from fairly reputable sources is that generic sort of AI tools like ChatGPT and the others will slowly become, not replaced, because there'll always be a place for them, but I think the immediate future is going to be a proliferation of AI agents. So that's AI agents that are very good at a particular thing, whatever that thing might be.
Okay.
And how they might all work together. I mean, that's enough.
Can I just add one thing to that, really? They reckon the big change will be when we get quantum computing, which is in its early stages now. But quantum computing is a game changer. It's like the difference between the Stone Age and a tungsten-tipped drilling tool. I mean, it's like a million miles. You put AI on quantum computing.
In the context of this conversation, what would it mean? What would it mean in the context of this conversation, Mike?
It means that the AIs will be able, the computing power will be there to make them much more like humans, much more. The convergence, where human intelligence and
How long
computers.
do you think that will take?
Well, no one really knows. The people have been saying the convergence is 10 years off for about 30 years. So your guess is as good as mine. But I think probably not in our business. Well, not in my business lifetime. That's for damn sure.
Hey, look, if that's where we're headed as a species, that's where we're headed.
Yeah. It's amazing. If you read about quantum computing, it is amazing.
Oh, I'm gonna jump in here, because if we get Mike on computing, we'll never talk about anything else. So what I want to do now is I want to talk about this world. We're not at that convergence point yet where AI can do everything. So let's talk about what we can do as people to move forward. Mike, why don't you ask Mitch where you want to start on this?
Yeah, I think we were going to start with job adverts because people have to put them out there all the time. It's a key part of a lot of people's recruitment activities, and we know there's a lot of competition for eyeballs. Really, there's never enough good people. I don't care what the market's doing. There's never enough good people. There can be a lot of people, but you got to get the good people. So what practical things can people do to get their adverts read and acted upon?
Right. Okay. I need to try and work out a short answer for this, because it can get quite deep, sadly. Look, probably 50% of successful job advertising is about distribution. Yeah, I've put out what I could thought were great ads that bombed because I didn't put them in the right places, albeit quite a while ago, and made certain assumptions about the target audience. So assuming that they're put in the right places, then the recruiter, the very first thing they need to do is they need to put themselves in the shoes of the person they're trying to reach. Who are they? What are they? Where are they likely to be at this moment in their life? For example, they've probably been working for their current company, because look, 70-80% of them are going to be in jobs. Yeah. And not that many of that 70 or 80. Well, no, sorry, it's more than that. It's 80 to 90% are going to be in a job. And a small percentage of that 80 to 90% are going to hate their job. So we'll be actively looking. So
it's about 20% on average. That's 20% of the people.
70% of people that might see a job ad are in a job they don't need to leave. So if you're only writing content about a job that's only speaking to 30% of the potential target audience, then you're not doing the right thing for your clients or your internal hiring managers. Yeah, you're just getting a sample. And the more niche and or specialized that job is, the more problematic that becomes. So the way around that is to put yourself in the mindset of the target candidate. Imagine where they are in their career. They've probably been at their current company for 3-4 years, because that's normally where the plateau starts to happen, and people start to get a bit bored, a bit jaded, particularly if they haven't got a promotion or the job hasn't got bigger. And you speak to those needs typically, or whatever else the job has that you and the hiring manager think might be attractive. By the way, the number one across all types of jobs at all seniority levels, the number one turn on is training. And that can take many forms: learning, development, mentoring, bigger challenge. A lot of learning comes from just having a bigger challenge, more scope, better resources, but they all kind of tie in. But people love the idea of getting better at their job. So if you can make that front and center of your ad, that will get people's attention, because people are far more interested in their own lives and their own careers than they are the company's mission or the company's desire to generate an extra 50 million in sales next year.
It's interesting, because someone said to me years ago, it's a training course I was on for public speaking, and they said, if you're speaking to a room full of cats, begin your speech talking about catnip. And I think it's the same in the written word, isn't it, really? Whoever you're writing for, begin your thing with something that they're going to be interested in, that's going to grab them. Yeah. If you don't do that, they'll read, I don't know these days, what's it? I gather the attention span of human beings is now less the attention span of a goldfish, someone told me.
Well, the attention will depend not just on the content, but where the reader is in their intent. If they're just very passive and casual, if the job speaks to them in terms of job title, salary, location, everyone reads the opening couple of sentences. If that doesn't say anything to them, they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's getting people to want to just start reading is critical, and the easiest way to do that is to make it about them.
I have a question on this, Mitch. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, go. You go.
Sometimes people think that the job description has to do everything. Where
yes,
do you think that the job description or the job ad should gain them enough where they're applying and they're open to have a conversation where you qualify them, and then you do a lot of the selling of the role in that, or does the job ad do a lot of the work?
No, and that's one of the classic mistakes people make, and some people think that the majority of potential candidates want to know everything about the job right at the very beginning, forgetting, of course, that at least 70% of the people that could do this job are in jobs that they don't need to leave. So why would they read a 900-word job description? It just makes no logical sense.
Just on the data on that, it would appear that group called passive but open is about between 40 and 50% of the people out there. So about 20% of people who are actively looking, 40 to 50% are passive. Yeah. They're not really looking, but if they just see it and it grabs them, okay, tell me more. And then the other 30, 40% or whatever, just not interested at all, just never move. So
all of these studies I've seen suggest that somewhere, depending on the economic conditions at the time, somewhere between 60 and 75% of people would be open to at least considering a new job if one came along. But then it's a question of how they find it, which makes it even more complicated.
But I like this idea, though. I like this idea that you're talking about, that you don't have to cover everything. You're just trying to get their interest enough that they would say, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And then they'll ring or they'll email or they'll do what they're going to do.
The whole point of any kind of ad is to get people to want to find out more. Yeah, nobody buys off the page. Nobody reads a job ad and thinks, I want this job.
Do you think people put too much into adverts? And do you think they do try and tick all the boxes?
Yeah, that's the question I was just answering. Is that the job ad purpose is to get someone to want to find out more. Yeah, the next stage in finding out more is reading the job description. And then, so to analogize it, a job ad is the teaser. The job description is the trailer, and everything that happens after that is the film.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I like that. Okay. And we've got a really good question here, which I think is a great follow-up. So John has asked, in the current market, over-engagement seems to be more of a problem than under-engagement. How specific should writers be in attempting to disqualify potential applicants through the ad? And do you have any tips for this?
Interesting question.
Thanks, John. Right. Okay, yeah, it is a problem. I think it's more of a problem in certain job sectors than others. Obvious examples would be tech. It's more of a problem in a sector like construction. It's probably not a problem. So this will be patchy. How specific should writers be in attempting to disqualify potential candidates through the ad? Look, I think trying to both attract and disqualify people in the same ad is advanced territory. If you're good at this stuff, yeah, have at it. It's not easy to do. Do you start with the disqualifier or do you start with the attractor? Yeah, I mean, you can put people off right from the start of a job ad if you know there are going to be loads of people who could do it and you're going to get a decent response. So to join those two ideas together about over-engagement, then maybe at least trial it. Just start by being negative about you're not right for this job or something. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, increasingly what people are doing, of course, is they're sticking the replies through AI. Let the AI do the work, which again, I actually don't agree with that, to be honest, but that's what they do. If they've got 200 CVs, they just whack it through an AI and the AI produces the best 20.
There are certain jobs where that makes complete sense for me. If you've got that kind of
the lower down, but the further up, not so much, I suspect.
Yeah, it's everything in recruitment is patchy and complicated.
Yeah. It really is. That's why we love it so. Okay, so I think we've spoken about job ads, and I think that's important. But what I want to talk about is something that I think people underestimate. And Mike, you're really big on this, which is CVs, right, Mike? We just took a glass of water. Just
say that again, because I was slurping water. Sorry.
No, yeah. CVs. You're a big proponent of CVs being written directly on you.
I thought you said CVs. But you
Why
said
would I say
CVs.
that? Why would I say that?
I've been on holiday for 2 weeks.
Get it together. Get it together. Get in the room.
Anyway, in case you hadn't known, I was on holiday. So.
Michael.
Right, CVs. Yeah, when I first entered recruitment a long time ago in the 80s, we were taught how to write. It was called a profile in those days, but it was like, because was all on paper. So that was the candidate's paper thing that we'd photocopied. And then on the front of it, we wrote a 1-page description. That description was supposed to get our CV read. That's what it was designed to do. And so it was meant to really bring out the relevance of that person, why, weirdly, all those years ago, why we'd selected them, and link into the CV. Oh, if you look at this page 3 on this so-and-so job, you'll see you did this, that, and the other, right? And there was a lot of training that went on that. And there was a lot of, I remember writing stuff that I thought was good that turned out it wasn't. And then we had to write it again until we got stuff that we could really write very powerful, what were called consultants' comments on the front page. And I know people still do that. But again, I think a lot of those are AI generated these days. What tips have you got if people really want their CV to stand out, not because they can present it in person, maybe it's gone through a portal or something, I don't know, but they haven't really had a chance to represent the CV, so that all they can do it with is the CV itself, the profile, perhaps a covering letter, maybe, but probably not. So what examples would you give about writing CVs to get read?
Well, first of all, going back to that whole kind of recruiter writing the profile at the top of a CV, by the way, which I never did, that's when recruiters started sounding like estate agents. It's from that moment
Not
on.
in the company I worked for, they didn't, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the number of those that I read that said early viewing, highly recommended. I mean,
No, not those.
Anyway, all right. The principles are exactly the same with the CV. The only good advice I've ever given anyone that's asked me about a CV is to customize it for each job. It's great advice, best advice I've ever given, but most people don't take it because they're lazy. And I'm not blaming candidates in general. They put as much effort into finding a job as they feel necessary, but that is the best way to get a CV read, is to make the first half of the ad start to solve the problem that the reader has got.
Right, but if you want CVs, because you've got two things here, you've got a candidate writing a CV that the agency will notice, and then you've got the agency writing the CV that the client will notice.
I've got no advice for agencies that try to rewrite CVs. It's not a practice I agree with. When I was recruiting, and I only stopped 2.5-3 years ago, I would get the candidate to rewrite the ad, the CV, and say, look, you need to, and I would instruct them on what it needs to look like and what the hiring manager is going to want to see. Now, in terms of getting the hiring manager to read the CV, and I'm sorry if this comes across as a little bit elitist, but just the fact that I was giving them the CV meant it was worth considering. I didn't have to.
That's okay if you've got a reputation, but if you're starting out, if you're new to the game, they don't know who you are, or it's a new account or whatever. All you've got is the opportunity to speak to people, which you may or may not be allowed these days in the world of the TAs that we all now seem to inhabit. What you actually get is a piece of paper. And I agree with you to a point on the rewriting CVs. We would do it like we would order a list of things in the order that people wanted it. We'd change the order of things. I'd take things out if it wasn't relevant. And if there was bits missing, I'd ring the contractor up, as it was in those days, and say, I need more on this. And I'd do it there and then, because it was a whole lot quicker than getting the punter to do it. But I think it's that first page. We used to have a saying, but this came from one of our clients, really. You'll be able to gauge from just the first page. If you write the first page well enough to someone that knows you, then they will look at that CV and they're much more likely to buy into that candidate if you've told them why you've submitted them, as opposed to, like you say, burns the midnight oil, a once in a lifetime opportunity, which is just a nonsense, really. So, but I just going back to the idea of writing stuff to get noticed. Obviously you're an AIDA. Everyone does AIDA. You've got to grab their attention to begin with. So are there any tips you've got for grabbing attention generally on written stuff, apart from getting to the head of the person that you're writing for? Are there any practical things that you would use, or is it just not possible to do that?
Yeah, it's possible to write a million different opening few sentences to an ad about any given subject. Just depends how you want to think about it, how you want to express it. Let me give you some examples. I've got a document open here that I was looking at earlier. I thought actually some of this might come in handy.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's go back to you remember when I said that training is probably the number one motivator for people to take a closer look at a job if they think.
While you're doing this, can we bring some comments?
Yeah,
up,
we've had some
While
comments.
Mitch is just finding his thoughts.
Well, you've got that.
Right. Well, look, I'm going to give you some actual examples.
Oh yeah, do it. Go ahead.
If you're ready, yeah.
Okay, so rather than just, because most job posts will just say training is available, yeah, or something benign like that. Whereas I would start the ad with something like, you'll have access to all our training programs, which means you'll learn more, become even better at your job, and open doors to various internal moves or promotions in the future. That sets up the entire ad. I define most people that read that have even a vague interest in getting better at their job will keep reading. Another alternative would be if it's not a big company and there isn't lots of training programs baked into the system, you'll get a training budget of X amount per year to spend on whatever you feel you most need. Yeah, there's all kinds of different ways of expressing the benefit of getting more learning. Loads and loads and loads of ways.
I think this question of learning and career development is undervalued. I think a lot of people think it's just all about the money, and research project after research project says that while the money is important, of course, it's got to pay your bills, right? It is these other things like career development, autonomy in terms of management, investment in you as a person in terms of coaching, training, support, and so on and so forth. And I think this is exactly spot on. I think that's what a lot of people are going to want out there, as well as the money and the number of days holiday they get.
Money normally in whenever studies have been done on what motivates people to pursue a job, money normally comes in at around 5th or 6th as being the primary driver. And I've had arguments with people online about it. There's people still, and I could name them, I'm not, who vehemently disagree with what I'm about to say. But it's normally as you say, those more emotional reasons that drive people to at least want to find out more. Where people get confused with money is in similar studies, whenever studies have measured dissatisfiers about a job, money normally comes in 1 or 2.
And it's the number one reason people give
if they think they're being underpaid. That's
it's easy. It's easy, isn't it, to say, well, I left because I wasn't being paid enough. And who knows? They might say, well, I'll pay you some more then. So who knows? But the real reason is generally not that. It's how people are managed or the work that they do or whatever. Yeah. Totally.
I also think from an employer point of view, that you don't want those people who are just only interested in money anyway, surely, because they're just going to come, take the money and then go to an immediately higher job. Whereas if you get somebody who wants to train and progress and grow, and you can offer that in your company, then the odds are they'll stay with you longer, be a more stable team, and you can be a more stable business. So for me, the logic makes sense as well from an employer point of view. Yes.
Okay. I know we're getting on for time, and I did want to just cover another really important thing, grabbing attention and getting some kind of reaction to it. And that is emails to potential candidates, right? So these are probably cold or coldish emails, and it's not like they're going to be expecting them necessarily. And yet in a time when there's never enough really good candidates, because we know that's the case, that email is really important. So can you give us some tips or some approaches that people should take for successful emails to candidates?
Right. Well, the approach, first of all, you've got to separate people that you've interacted with before and those you've never interacted, because they're two different messages. Because that first group are far more likely to engage with whatever you send to them because of that previous interaction. So there's a level of trust that has been developed.
Let's go worst case scenario where they don't know who you are.
Okay, well, I was coming to that anyway. So the second category, people that are cold outreach. So the 3 classic mistakes I see most recruiters make in their outreach is, number 1, the message is too long. And by too long, I mean 150 plus words, way too long. It's arrogant to expect someone who doesn't know you is going to stop and read that in a message. And to compound that, those 150 or 200 words are all about what the recruiter and or the hiring company wants. All it's saying is, we've got this exciting opportunity that we think you'll be a great fit for. I mean, the arrogance of telling the reader that they'd be a great fit for a job they know nothing about is, I think, startling. But anyway, and then the third big no-no is they seem to put in a hard close. What I mean by a hard close is asking the reader to then send their CV or give their phone number or ring them or book a time in their calendar, whatever it might be. Some even ask, do they know anyone else? I mean, seriously. So the way I address those three common issues is you make the first message no more than 50 or 60 words, maybe 70 tops, absolute tops. You make it so short that just by opening it, the reader reads it, because you can't not read 60 words on a screen. You can't look at them for more than 3 seconds and not understand what it says. Try it. It's impossible. So you make it really short. Secondly, you make it all about them. Yeah. Hi, Steve. I'm working on an XYZ job that I think you might be interested in because benefit 1, benefit 2, whatever. There's a great training program which will allow you to blah, blah, blah. And you'll also be able to blah, blah, blah. And that's it. 60 odd words. That's it. And then you use a soft close, which is simply, would you like some more info? So you're making it as easy as possible for them to engage.
And all they have to do is click the reply button, really. That's all they need to do.
As easy as possible. So look, it's not a magic bullet, but it will comfortably get you I think a 5 to 10% uplift in your numbers. And that's all it takes with some in recruitment where the margins are so small. We only need to find one customer per job. So getting an extra 3 or 4 qualified people in the process is often the difference between filling it first time and not filling it.
That's so interesting to me, because I think instinctively you think when you're sending these very cold emails that you're thinking, I have to persuade them. And so I have to put a lot of information in there so they're more like, whereas actually what you're saying is that's counterintuitive. You need to just
absolutely. You've got to persuade them to want to get the second message.
Right.
You've got to do everything in recruitment is like a little mini sale. You just get the person to do the next thing you'd like them to do, and so on. Then after that, you get them to want to read the JD, and then the next thing you want to do is get them to have a chat with the hiring manager or go for an interview or whatever it might be. It's lots of little mini sales. So you're right, Kirsty. So many recruiters think give them everything, then they can make a decision. Absolutely, you're right. Counterintuitive is the best way of putting it. Actually, I was going to say bonkers, but yours is way more.
It's both work, but it's sort of similar to the ads as well. Though what you were saying is the point of the ad is to get them to get the job description. That's the point. You don't put everything from the job description in the ad. So it's this kind of. It sounds so simple. It sounds like such a simple tweak, but I really feel like it's kind of one of those things where you get picked up and moved to a completely different train of thought, because, like we've been told to be persuasive, you must. This is your problem. This is how it solves. This is your other problem. This is how it solves. That's not what you're doing on those first interactions. What you're doing on those first interactions is essentially going, look how cool that is. And they go, oh, that's what you want, essentially.
And going back to something that was raised earlier, and it fits in with the whole job description thing, is and sadly, I've looked at so many millions of job ads that I start to sort of get quite meta about it. And I will regularly see ads where I can see that they're trying to sell the job. And they do it. The 2 most common ways that I see people trying to sell the job is they use lots of adjectives, fantastic, wonderful, innovative, passionate, all these kind of flowery words, but actually they're not really saying anything. And the other way, and the most popular way, is to talk about how great the company is, because there seems to be a deep-rooted belief. And I think this stems from companies and recruiters believing what companies tell them, is that it's the stature of the company that's going to be of most interest to most potential candidates. It just isn't. It just isn't.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So we are coming to the end, but I've got a couple of comments. There's been so many comments. I haven't been able to keep up with them. I can't bring them all up, but there's a couple of questions I want to bring up. So Matthew mentioned this. Passive candidates need to know the salary, Kirsty, because how can they compare their current role to the one being advertised? Very much agree with this, because obviously you need to do it. My point was that they don't need to be perfect. But my question is to you, Mitch, is should you put the salary in that first ad?
Yes, absolutely. Always. Yeah. Absolutely.
And would you put it in?
At worst, a range.
Okay. And would you put it in the email as well? In that first sales email?
Good question, actually. No, I'd put it in the second email.
Aha. Okay. So in the first ad, but not in the first email. Ooh, nuance.
Well, yeah. Well, let me explain why. A job ad is a one-to-many medium. So you're trying to reach as many of the right people as possible quickly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas an email or an email is a one-to-one channel. Yeah.
Right.
You're trying to convert people one at a time. And if you send a message that short and that compelling and that tantalizing, I mean, you know, and don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that those two benefits you mentioned in that first message are going to land with the recipient. A lot of the time they won't, but they'll be curious to find out more because they don't get messages like that.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes so much sense. You're making so much sense, mate. I love it.
Oh.
Right. Okay. So we're coming towards the end of the show now. So in a second, Mitch, I'm going to come to you for the top tip. I mean, like Julia here has said, great sales advice, not just for CV or job ads. It's just great sales advice, which I really agree with. But we're going to come to you for that top tip in a second. But before then, Mike, let's talk about the next episode because it's slightly different.
Yes, it is, Kirsty, if you can bring it up. So we're not doing a show in 2 weeks' time, which would be the 25th of February. We're actually doing a webinar on the 26th of February, right? So it's slightly longer and it's more in depth, and it's how to grow your business, the first 5 hires. So we're actually taking a story effect, a journey from somebody who's a solopreneur, someone who's on their own, but has got ambitions to grow. They're pretty good at recruitment. They're pretty good at sales. They can bring vacancies in. That's all okay. But they want to grow and they don't want to turn into a yo-yo company that grows and shrinks and grows and shrinks, which quite frankly is endemic in this industry. And the reason that people grow and shrink is they're not setting up the foundations as they go. And we're going to put those foundations in place step by step. So it's a step-by-step journey. It's going to be really good. We do the same thing, don't we, Kirsty, on our summits that we do. It's quite a small thing that we do there, but this is much more extended and people will learn step by step what they need to do to grow a business, which you're looking at a pre-tax profit of about £350,000 to £500,000. So that's what we're looking to do. Don't miss it. We'll invite everybody on who's attended this show. If you're watching a recording of this or listening to this on any of the podcast platforms that we're on, then please just keep an eye out for LinkedIn, because it'll be all over my LinkedIn posts. You'll see it there and you can just register. You won't get to see it. This is a webinar, not a LinkedIn Live. So if you don't register, you don't get to see it. Simple as.
Okay. All right. So we're coming back now. Mitch seems to have gone. His webcam's gone and he's on mute. Oh,
he's back.
There he is. There he is. It's okay. It's okay. Just worried that you weren't some technical issues. We've had them before. So Mitch, as I said, you've given a lot of little nuggets here. But if you were to say to someone, right, that the most important thing or the first thing that you need to do when you're writing any kind of content that we've discussed today to your audience, what's your top tip?
It is, well, there's a lot. Now I'm struggling which one to choose.
Well, we talked about this one earlier, but you can't pick a different one.
No, but Kirsty, you raised a really good point about people trying to give everything all at once, because that's at the heart of the problem, really. And getting people to stop doing that or stop believing that's the right thing to do is difficult. But if you're a hiring manager or an HR person or a recruiter working on a job that you know historically is difficult to fill, and you want to give yourself the best chance of filling it as quickly as possible, and with the best chance of finding a good selection of eligible candidates, you've got to treat it as a sales process. You've got to think, right, how might they be thinking? What do we have about this job that might be attractive to these people? How can we talk about them? And where should we talk about them? And in terms of a job ad, the place you should talk about them is right at the very beginning of the ad. So if a job ad most job ads average in at around 350 words, 320 maybe, the first 120 to 150 should be almost exclusively about the reader, not about the writer. If you just do that one thing consistently, they will get better quality. It doesn't mean every ad will work because there are too many other variables, but over a relatively short period of time, you will get noticeably better quality responses. And the first time somebody gets an email from somebody that says something like, "I'm not really looking, but I saw your job ad," you know it's working.
You've got it working, yeah. Okay, just before we finish up, if somebody's interested in talking to you about training, presumably just connect with you on LinkedIn, send you a message. Is that the best way?
I don't need a whole pitch here, but I'm dead easy to find. I haven't really got any competition. So yeah, if you want to learn how to write better recruitment copy, then yeah, that's
you're the man for that job.
Just to make it easier, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put the link below as well. And Mitch is obviously linked on the LinkedIn event as well. So it should be nice and easy to find him. Okay, so we have come to the end. So first of all, I want to thank everybody who's watched today and all of the comments that you guys have been having. I can see you having little discussions over there, so that's been fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. I want to say a huge thank you to Mitch, because I think one little thing has really blown my mind, which is the sort of less is more, which is for some reason just absolutely mind-boggled me, Mitch. But thank you so much for attending today and offering so much value.
Thank you. Thank Kirsty. Thank you, Mike.
Well, it was. I knew this would be great. I knew we'd get into all sorts of discussions, and I knew also we couldn't cover the subject to the depth that everybody would like. It's not possible. There's too much to talk about. But thank you very much. It's great, thought-provoking, as Kirsty said, and thank you as well for Kirsty, as always, for being the hostess for the mostess on the Kirsty Ames Recruitment Show. Did I get that right?
You did get it right. You did get it right. You did get it right. And thank you to you, Mike. You've been back off holiday and you've been here, which has been great. It's been great to have you back. Okay.
Dancing like an Egyptian now.
Oh, we're gonna go swiftly. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.